Springfield's Talk 1041. Do you know what that sound is?
What?
That's the sound of political ads not playing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, there's going to be
A breath of fresh
a
air.
lighter commercial load for television, for radio, for all sorts of advertising. Um, It's be a nice little breather for everyone, especially those for whom the race is over. Even losing at times, while it isn't clearly the desired outcome, I imagine there's that part of the person that's like, well, thank goodness it's over. For those who actually run really hard campaign. Some people they don't necessarily. They show up at at convenient events and that's about it. But then you have those that get out there and they just campaign hard nonstop, and it can just be exhausting physically and emotionally and intellectually. Your brain is fried. A lot of the folks who did win, they're still obviously going to have to run in the general election, but in these here parts, it's the primary that is important. Now, I know for so many conservatives, the gubernatorial race massively disappointing with Tax Hike Mike getting the nomination. You've got 39.4% of the vote going to Tax Hike Mike, which, of course, again means a majority of people who voted did not want him. And in all likelihood, whomever had won, it would have been that way. I'm not gonna beat this horse, but as you know, this is one of the reasons that I'm opposed to the way that Missouri does this, because you ultimately, more likely than not, you end up, whatever the political party, with a candidate that a majority of your own voters said that's not who we want. I mean, to me, it's just an insane way of doing it. What should happen is there should be a runoff between, in this case, just in all of the cases, you've got your top candidates. Your top two candidates should run off against one another if no one gets 51% of the vote. In a scenario like the gubernatorial race, Mike Kehoe, if he had gotten 50 plus 1% of the vote, then yeah, he should be the nominee. But when you have a majority, it's just a messed up system. When a majority of people can say, no, that's not who we want, and then that person ends up getting elected or gets the nomination, it's just, I just don't see how you justify that. I know why it's in place. We've talked about that before, and we're not the only state that has this completely absurd system, which if we want to talk about anti-democratic, to me, this is it. But states that have their heads on straight have runoff elections. We just don't do that here. It's another way that Missouri is mediocre. Now, when it comes to Kehoe's going to be up against Crystal Quaid. The Democrat voters collectively decided with the options that they had, they wanted the one person who hired a high-priced attorney and went to court to try to kick the only black man off the ballot that was in her district, which, of course, I think that's a legitimate question to ask. If Crystal Quaid will do that to a black person in her own district, what will become of black people in the state of Missouri if she's governor? Will black people be allowed to be on the ballot? Will they be allowed to vote, even participate in the democratic process? I mean, these are fair questions given her behavior. But this is where the Democrat Party is today, supporting, of all the choices, someone who disenfranchises black people as candidates, as voters, and the party of anti-Semitism, which we're going to get to that coming up. And unapologetically so. It is just insane that in 2024, openly, you have even Democrats, and we'll play some of the audio, Democrats noting that the reason Kamala Harris did not pick Shapiro is because of the anti-Semitism. It is significant enough within the Democrat Party that she had to not pick the Jew. Jews not need apply when it comes to running for office in today's Democrat Party. And it wasn't always that way. Al Gore had Joe Lieberman as a running mate. Of course, the Democrat Party would eventually run him out of the party, and he would become independent, perhaps seeing the writing on the wall. And the fact that the Democrat Party today evaluates and discusses the anti-Semitic Democrat voter as if it's just another normal demographic. You know, you got the blue-collar worker that we got the young voter, we got the black voter, we got our anti-Semitic voters. They treat neo-Nazis within their own party, Hitler Youth, as if it's just another demographic that they're perfectly fine with, that they just have to balance. And we've seen when it comes to balancing which side the current modern-day Democrat Party chooses. And that is, Jews need not apply. This is why all of the pro-terrorist members of the party were openly celebrating the Sob Squad, the pro-Hamas members of the Democrat Party, that have said and campaigned with terrorists, some of these individuals. Campaigned with them. Fundraised, rather, I should say. Ilhan Omar being one of those individuals. Openly celebrating this choice. We'll talk about a few of these other races locally here. Cori Bush is out. You see that? She's gone. Speaking of the Sob Squad, she's out. Got rid of her. Now, the reason that they got rid of her, it's a primary. If it had been a decision between Cori Bush and some Republican, then Cori Bush would have won. But this was an opportunity for the Democrats to try and get rid of somebody that, as they say, would oftentimes say the quiet part out loud. It's interesting that one of the reasons that they wanted to get rid of her is because of all the negative attention she brought to the Democrat Party because of her anti-Semitism. Yet here you've got Kamala Harris choosing a VP candidate that everyone knows was based off of anti-Semitism. Cori Bush must be thinking, are you kidding me? You boot me? You get somebody to run against me for my anti-Semitism? When that is the, apparently right now, the driving force behind the Democrat Party's platform. I don't hear any sort of movement, incidentally, of Democrat candidates or even Democrat voters. There's no movement amongst Democrat voters saying, if my party is going to cater to neo-Nazis, I'm not going to be part of it. I think that's pretty interesting and pretty telling. Weather in a moment, now the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it's going to be sunny with a high near 87. Tonight clear with a low around 65. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And on Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 82.
Last chance this week to get registered to win tickets to see Barry Manilow Saturday, August 24th at the Great Southern Bank Arena. That is a if you have the KSGF app on Fridays, also you will get what is called a push notification, and that will let you know on Friday, usually late morning, early afternoon, what the specific deal is that Godfathers has offered for you at their 4 area locations. Sometimes it's free delivery, sometimes it's special pricing, sometimes it's a free this with this and so forth. And that's something, again, for you to watch for with that app on Friday. And that's the only place it's announced. So if that's where you get that information. When you call them, make sure that you mention, hey, I want that special that I got on the KSGF app, the buy one, get one, or whatever it is that it happens to be for that day. And that is, again, with the KSGF app. All right, so just quick look over a number of the elections. Holly in the primary ran unopposed. Congressman Burleson, he had a number of different people that were also running in the primary against him. He was victorious with 83% of the vote. Clearly a very healthy win there. Talking about the gubernatorial race, nobody got a majority vote, but that's the way we do things in Missouri. You can have a majority of people vote against you and still get the nomination, as did tax hike Mike Kehoe. Kehoe getting 39.4% of the vote, Eigel 32.55, and then Ashcroft 23.24. This was, for a lot of people, a very difficult one, not knowing which way to vote. And they feared that you would hear this quite often. I just wish one of them would drop out and support the other one. That way a conservative could win. And we had this, in fact, conversation at happy hour. And I said, yeah, I understand that sentiment, but I also understand that when you're in a scenario like that, each one of the candidates is going to be like, well, why should I be the one to drop out? You should be the one to drop out. I'm sure that's how I would be if you've run a campaign and all of the fundraising and the late nights and people that believe in you. That's a thing that I think oftentimes people don't think about. Not that it should be the overriding driver of a decision like that, but whenever there are these split vote concerns and this desire, this outcome of, well, I just wish one would drop out and support the other. That way, the conservatives could win the day. There are a lot of people who really work hard, hundreds of hours volunteering because they believe in that candidate, and to then have to tell those people, oh, by the way, I've decided all your work, I'm just going to now drop out, and sort of like a Biden with Kamala situation, I guess, to some degree. That's just not as easy said as done. But I understand the sentiment because then you can avoid a situation in which you have an establishment candidate in there. Now, Kehoe, in all likelihood, is going to beat Crystal Quade for a number of different reasons. His campaign, as said, they've got the email, that part of his plan is to eliminate state income tax. It's nothing I found on his site. It's nothing I found in his ads. I first heard of this when it was Cops for Kehoe's running these ads, and I thought, well, I'm going to reach out to the campaign because this is that's pretty big deal here, particularly when your opponents are running on, among other things, as at least part of the big platform, massively eliminating taxes, and you're not out there talking about this, particularly given that one of the biggest accomplishments during his time as lieutenant governor was lobbying and helping push through 5 tax increases on Missourians. At least two or three of which we still haven't even gotten yet. So we'll still be getting tax increases thanks to Kehoe and others in a couple years into his governorship, should he win, which I suspect that he will. We should not let him forget that his campaign said, yes, that is something he is going to do, eliminate state income tax. I suspect, this is the cynical me, given his track record of tax increases, that there may be some sort of symbolic gesture, but no real effort, knowing that the establishment wing of the Republican Party from which he comes is in no way, shape, or form ever going to do anything like that. And then he can just throw up his hand and go, well, I tried. There's nothing I can do. It's up to the state legislature. It's the legislative body, and the votes aren't there. So what do you want me to do? Now, of course, he knew that that would be the situation going in. He's not naive. So we'll see. We'll hold his feet to the fire in this one. Ain't holding my breath. When you get lied to often enough about this stuff, you start to kind of you level your expectations. Now, the lieutenant governor, this I actually felt Lincoln Huff had a better chance of winning the lieutenant governor slot than Kehoe did the gubernatorial slot. Oh, incidentally, I do want to mention, I was going back and forth who of Eigel or Ashcroft was going to come out stronger, because the polls were, and in fact, I had just had a conversation with someone last week who believed Ashcroft was going to be the strongest of the candidates, but we're hearing all this Eigel talk, and I was like, I know, but Ashcroft does have the name recognition. But if you looked around, I mean, for every one Ashcroft sign, it seemed like you saw 20 Eigel signs. And that sort of getting out there, because, if somebody has a sign, that means that somebody from the Eigel campaign had some sort of communication with that individual, and that can be all the difference. There are a lot of people who vote just based off of, hey, they cared enough to send somebody to my house, knock on my door, to give me a call, and that could have made the difference. I don't know. Lincoln Huff, however, that was a close one.
Yeah.
I thought that he would get it.
Have they actually officially called it?
I don't know that. I mean, I'm seeing 100% of the vote counted, and you've got Wassinger at 31.39%, Lincoln Huff at 30.26%. Now, I always forget, however, what the rules are, and if they're different by state versus county, and if you have an automatic recall. I'm not sure whether that'll come into play. I think we're talking about 6,000 votes maybe of a difference here. So holding up. I just haven't seen it officially declared, but it's being reported as Wassinger won against Lincoln Huff there. And according to the news leader, he did concede the race to David Wassinger. So that's, a step towards making it official, I suppose. Secretary of State, Denny Hoskins, 24.4% of vote. Again, here, so you have 3 out of 4 Republicans voting for somebody else. Shane Scholler at 16.83%. State Treasurer, the incumbent, Vivek Malik, 41.5% of the vote. You had in third place, though very close to second place, Lori Rook. I mentioned her, but she's been on the air. She's local to the area at 19.39%. And I will say that there may have been others that worked just as hard as she did, but I mean, just, you want to talk about somebody that did not have in place an infrastructure, because she isn't a career politician, hasn't run campaigns before, the amount of work she did, she deserves huge kudos for that. And she made a comment at one point that regardless of what happened, if I remember correctly, may not be the exact words, that regardless of the outcome, this is just the beginning for her getting involved. And I think that there is something to be said about people like that, and I would label Angela Romine as another one of those individuals. Sometimes people, they will run for office for the first time, and if they don't win, then that's it for them. But those that you can tell, and it's oftentimes in retrospect, that they really are in it for what they believe is the greater cause when they run for something and they lose, and that's not the end for them, that's the beginning. They find some way to make a difference, whatever it is, behind the scenes, helping others. And Angela Romine, she has been one of those individuals that is doing that. And I think there's a good chance Lori Rook may also be someone like that as well. And I think that is a world of difference in character and motivation that you see between somebody like those individuals versus, again, those who just think, well, I'd be good at that and I want to be involved, but then they lose and that's it for them. All right, let's see. I'm trying to think. Attorney General Andrew Bailey, 63% of the vote. So he got a clear majority over Will Scharf there. Stefano Freeman, he was one that called into the show yesterday. He had almost 60% of the vote, 59.41%. So he was extremely successful there. Mike Moon, he got in his primary 77.2% of the vote. Susan Harrelson was taking him on. She's the one that had declared, well, I like the Constitution all, but I mean, you can't follow every line of it. Not a huge help for her own campaign, but I will give her this. That level of honesty is not something that you generally hear from people running for office, because most people, and Mike Moon's the exception, most people who run for office, they do operate that way. Like, and it's not even a line by line, it's when it's convenient for them. Whenever I can cite the Constitution as justification, then I will. Otherwise, I'll say, well, that's for the courts to decide. So for Susan Harrelson, who's challenging Mike Moon to come out and just admit, well, yeah, I'm not going to follow it by line by line. I'm not, I give her something for being honest. But the people in District 29, 77.2% to Mike Moon. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, everyone. Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF. A traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight, clear with a low around 65. For Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And on Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 82.
Someone had texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company Talk and Text line. Yesterday's show, I was surprised how many people said they were voting for Scharf instead of Bailey. Why do you think that was the case? I thought Bailey was doing a good job of following in Eric Schmidt's footsteps. It's interesting. There was a Federalist piece last week that was accusing Bailey of dropping the investigation, I think, into the Zuckbuck situation, and there was a real conflict between versions of why that occurred between now Senator Schmidt and Bailey's office. And essentially, according to the Federalist, and they're reaching out to and getting comments, the Bailey office was saying, well, that was closed. That investigation was closed by Schmidt, and Schmidt was like, that is very not true. In fact, we had several meetings with them about the progress of it. So what they're saying is not true. I don't know who's telling the truth. I don't know, but it was garnering enough attention that there was an entire piece in the Federalist about that. I guess if you want to call it a scandal, but certainly a variation of interpretations. Not that that has anything to do with why it was that the text coming in, listening and hearing all of the people say Scharf, that they're going to vote for Scharf, and Bailey ended up winning so handily. And, well, one, and obviously the call-in was not a scientific approach to getting a sense of how the entire state was going to vote. And even this listening area, it may not have been an accurate representation, or it could have been. I will tell you this, whether this is the reason or not, and it could have just been a fluke sort of thing. A lot of the people who are active conservatives in the area are listeners to this station and this show. And to me, it seemed, not based off of phone conversations, or not based off the phone calls coming in yesterday, but just based off of conversations I would have with people off air at events, those people really liked Scharf. Wasn't that they thought necessarily Bailey was awful, but they just, and maybe some did, but they just really felt that Scharf was fantastic and conservative, and they felt he would be really, really good. So given that segment of the voting population disproportionately seemed to be supporters of Scharf, and that grouping of people also are likely to be listening, and I know some of them are listeners of the show, it could potentially just be because of that grouping of individuals. Don't know that that's necessarily the reason for that discrepancy, but if trying to figure it out, it could very well be the reason. Let's see. Somebody noting that the commercial calling Scharf a New Yorker was very effective. Yeah, I think so too. I saw somebody had posted something on, and somebody that I know, it's somebody I like, been involved in politics, that the election outcomes, I forget the exact wording, but the point was that the election outcomes prove that negative campaigning doesn't work. And I was thinking, what are you talking about? I don't know that that's necessarily the lesson to be taken away. Not that every candidate who won had negative ads out there, but I mean, they were all over the place. And even if it wasn't the candidate, PACs on behalf of candidates, I mean, just the negativity, like Scharf, liberal New Yorker, the painting of candidates who were endorsed by Trump as not being endorsed by Trump, as Trump hating when he in fact endorsed them. But of course, as I said, he muddied the waters by endorsing about anyone and everyone that was running. It seemed like didn't help any, made things a lot messier, but nonetheless. Trump can now, tout that, oh, look, my endorsements won. Well, when you endorse everyone in certain races, yes, odds are you are going to be able to tout, yes, look, my endorsement won. Was that the reason he did it? I don't know. And listen, he may have just, he gets bombarded all the time with requests for endorsements. So it may just be a way when he's like, listen, I'm fine with any of these people, so I'll just endorse all of them, letting the people of Missouri know any of these people I'm fine with, though I disagreed with some of his endorsements. I don't believe that this election cycle was indicative of an argument that negative campaigning doesn't work. It's just my personal assessment on the whole thing. Cori Bush, she's out. That's good news for the state of Missouri. Arnott won by like 80%. I don't think that was a massive surprise to anyone. Just wanted to mention that one also. In fact, as I was coming in, like at 4 something this morning, already the digital billboards of Arnott saying thank you are up. So, that was a decisive victory there. All right, so yesterday, in addition to the elections here locally, you had the announcement from Kamala Harris, and it was leaked out, or maybe not leaked out, but it was put out there. It was being reported before the end of the show. And as I predicted, it was not Shapiro. I believed that the assessment was it was just going to be too damaging to the Democrat Party to have someone who's Jewish on the ticket. The Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party it was when Joe Lieberman was on the running, or was the running mate of Al Gore. It is a much different party now. And anti-Semitism has taken root within the Democrat Party to the point that you don't even hear Democrats criticizing or calling it out. I mean, what does that tell you? Even here locally, you've got Crystal Quaid she's running for governor. Has she once called out the anti-Semitism within her own party? What does that tell you? I mean, they can't deny it's there. Everyone knows it's there. In fact, we're going to play audio coming up of some of these networks, CNN, MSNBC, Democrats talking about how this decision was made because of anti-Semitism within the Democrat Party. Why does Crystal Quaid not condemn that? Is it because she's okay with it? Is she afraid of offending the neo-Nazi Hitler youth within her party? What happened to the Democrats' silence is violence, and by not coming out against something, that suggests that you're for it. Where's that mantra when it comes to Crystal Quaid and the lack of condemnation of anti-Semitism within her party? Where is the news leader to ask these questions? Has any media outlet that has done an interview with Crystal Quaid, have any of those outlets asked her those questions? By the way, you want to breed anti-Semitism? That's how you do it. You pretend it doesn't exist for political purposes. You keep your mouth shut. Many of us grew up during a period of time where you learn about the Holocaust, and the questions were always asked, how could people have walked by those camps every day, normal citizens of Germany? How could they just walk by and not say anything? How can you have anti-Semitism in your political party and not say anything? How can you just walk down the street whistling away, pretending as if it doesn't occur, pretending as if it doesn't have a significant play within your own political party? Do you believe that not condemning it will lead to less or more anti-Semitism in the party? I think most of us know the answer. Whether it's intentional or not, the reality here is the Democrat Party is demonstrating through their behavior that they are perfectly comfortable with anti-Semitism within their political party. And the media knows it, which is why they don't ask the questions. Look the other way. Walk past the concentration camp, pretend it's not there. That's how that happens. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Someone had asked about the ballot measures. This was on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. There were the two ballot measures. One was regarding the exemption of property taxes for places that provided child care, and it failed 54.7%. I was kind of surprised. That surprised me a little bit. I thought, now, I voted against it because, again, I don't believe that you should have say, oh, well, I know people view this differently. They see it as government, like, well, that's a good thing. Childcare is a good thing. And so that's why it should be done. But you're talking about people's money. And to me, the idea that the government says, if you behave in a certain way, if you open a certain business, if you purchase a certain product, we'll take less of your money from you. That's just wrong to me. It's immoral. The flip side of that, and this is just, again, how I interpret this. If you don't behave in the way that we want you to as government, then we're going to take more money from you than we take from those who comply with our desires. Because that's ultimately what it is. Whether it's purchasing, certain products, this is a big deal with electric vehicles, but even when it comes to, any sort of, quote, environmentally friendly products, you see it with solar. I know windows at one point, certain windows you could get. It's just all over the place. Tax credit this, tax credit that, tax credit this, tax credit that. And then these exemptions, these carve-outs. And to me, it's just, it drives me nuts that you have government based off your behavior. If they approve of it, they will let you keep more of your money. If they don't approve of it, then they're going to take more of your money. To me, that's just wrong. Now, I don't know. I suspect most people don't think of it that way. Many of you probably do. So it's interesting to me that a majority of people voted against this, because generally when it comes to things like, kids and law enforcement and fire and, those are easy gets. Majority of people, who's against kids, especially kids that need daycare, who could be against that? And so it's an easy play. So to see a majority vote against it, I was just a little surprised. And that's the way I voted. Amendment 4, which is about Kansas City, ultimately, and requiring funding for the police department from 20% of its general revenue to 25%. That did pass. And not by a huge amount, 25,000 votes, according to the news leader, is what that passed. So that's the two amendments there. Did you see the video of the announcement of what is with...
I posted it on our social.
They are so horrible.
It's so cringy.
It is so... This is the cringe campaign. They have tried, I would argue unsuccessfully, ultimately, in terms of having any sort of meaningful impact, to label J.D. Vance as weird. I think that is not something that's going to move the needle for them. They need to be references the cringe campaign. Everything about it. And if you didn't see it, and part of it's the visuals, it's just so fake. It looks... When it happened with Kamala, and, here she's just walking down a corridor and somebody hands her a phone. Hello? Oh, it's the Obamas there. Isn't that amazing? And they happen to have cameras, and then they're able to cut it all together and edit it. And oh, she's just so honored that they're supporting her. And to me, it reminded me of what you would see as an opening of the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, where whomever, Jack Black or whomever the host of the awards was going to be, and they open it with some sort of skit, and the skit was the call letting them know, from their agent that, hey, you've gotten chosen to be the host of the Kids' Choice Award, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, and it, obviously it's done just as an opening, and clearly it's fake, and they almost play off the fact that it's fake. That's what it just seemed like. It was so horrible.
This one is worse.
You think it's worse?
Yeah. I think the thing that drove me nuts about it is you have her sitting there and she's, calling, and he answers and he's like, hello, this is Tim. He's not expecting this phone call, even though there's a camera over in the corner.
Why, some random person is filming me as I'm sitting here in my living room. Wasn't he wearing shorts also? It's like, they're trying to, based off his looks, make him seem just like you and me. Just normal flyover country Americans, because he wears a ball cap and, okay. But it's the same thing. I want you to join me. Oh, he's just so on. And for a campaign, this is the political party that once upon a time was the cool party, the party of young people, and they're catering towards young people. This is the thing that I've been thinking about. We might be, if this is resonating, if this sort of campy, cringy, really fake, sketchy stuff is something that is going to be effective with the younger people, then we may be shifting into this weird culture in which young people are uncool. It's always been the opposite, right? It's the young people that lead the way in terms of culture, that lead the way in terms of fads. It's the young people that are cutting edge. But if these sort of videos that many of us would expect to see at an assembly, in which maybe it's the talent show and the counselors and some of the teachers got together, and you're in middle school, but they're trying to put something together that relates to you, and you're like, oh my God, it's just it just doesn't hit. But if that is all of a sudden working on young people, then we may be living through a period of time where, for the first time definitely in any of our lives, and Lord knows maybe in the history of mankind, that young people have managed to be conditioned to where they have lost all creativity, they've lost the edge, and they are no longer the leading edge of what's cool. Because it's just to me, it is so off the mark, and that nobody is saying to them after these videos get done, "Hey, you got to stop doing these. These look awful." They keep doing them, and the Obama call to Kamala wasn't the first one. She did one of those with some black actress or artist of some degree, and it was some call about, I don't even remember, abortion, and it was the same sort of clearly not even good acting, bad acting, campy cringiness. But I mean, they keep running with it. So I hope, for the sake of humanity, that it doesn't resonate, because if so, oh, I can't imagine. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Apologize to Corbin. He sat on a hold. I just honestly got wrapped up in answering a Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line question, and then talking about that stupid video and the cringiness of the Kamala cringe campaign. So my apologies to Corbin. We've got more in the upcoming hour. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Oh, did you get her magazine?
No.
I should have brought it in. I'm sure you'll get one because you've worked with her. I open up my mailbox and there's this magazine. I mean, really not. It's kind of getting your home ready for fall and fall recipes and
Super
things that you can.
one.
I'll bring mine in, and it was addressed to to Nick and Morgan, and it had her on it and everything, and so it clearly goes out to people who have utilized her services before. So I'm sure
Right.
you'll get one. But I'll bring mine in tomorrow just in case you don't. But it's very nice. And I was going through it, with talking to Morgan about it, and just I said it's just amazing. There are few people that are proactive in trying to figure out ways to just better improve their services. It is so easy, particularly when you're successful, to just continue doing what you're doing. There's the old adage, why try and fix what ain't broke? And she clearly is very successful. And not because she, has this massive team of individuals and tries to do as high volume as possible, but her specialty is personalized experience. Dealing with you. You don't meet with her and then get handed off to somebody else that you deal with the entire time until the closing. Or have 4 or 5 different people that you deal with. She is about quality, not quantity. That's been her focus, and she's been very successful at it. But to then okay, what can I do to better serve the community? And I'm telling you this one because this is who she is. But if when it comes to buying or selling homes, if that's what you're looking for, then Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. She is without question your go-to. I know many of you have utilized her, as I have, as Sarah has, and I, even when it's not talking to you, and anybody ever is looking for someone to help buy or sell, I'm always telling them Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. And of course, you can find her social media and KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text. I want to go to Dewey. I failed to go to, who was it?
Corbin.
Corbin. I apologize, Corbin. So before I forget, Dewey, welcome to the show.
Hey, so with the child tax credit on there, I voted no for both amendments. But you notice it said it could affect the blind pension. Most people have no idea what. Yeah, you seen that on there. Most people have no idea what that is. You pay for it, I get it.
Right.
It's only Missouri does it, but because if you're blind, they give you $8.28 a month, and it's on your property taxes. And so it to say if you vote for it, it's going to affect blind pension, or if you vote against it. But what's interesting to me is just a few years ago, there was a big lawsuit. The state tried to tap into the blind pension fund and use it for other services. And it was back in the 1920s, the Missouri voters gave us that. It was originally for blinded veterans, and they've expanded it. There was a huge lawsuit, and the state tried to say, well, it's for other blind services. We're like, no, that's not what the Missouri taxpayers gave you that money for. And there's a huge lawsuit, and the state lost, and they appealed, they lost again. So I find it interesting that they would throw the blind pension in there.
Well, I guess they figure
with child daycare.
Well, I guess they figure maybe you're not that big of a demographic to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. They have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah,
unless you're talking about blind parents. I don't know, but
well, that's not uncommon. Unfortunately, they do that. They put numerous different issues together when constitutionally they're not supposed to. Are you still in the Springfield area, by the way? Sarah and I were talking about that the other day. We just hadn't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I'm gonna come over there Friday, visit with you guys.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you, Dewey. It's good to hear from you, sir.
Yep.
All right. Have a great one. Appreciate the call this morning. We're going to have a look at the weather here in just a moment. Mentioning Friday Scramblers, of course, we will be out there. The Friday Road Show, sponsored by Custom Shade Window Tinting, powered by 3M Window Film. And now the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight, clear with a low around 65. For Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 82.
All right, sorry, I was trying to get some audio lined up over here. All right, the reaction to the Walls pick has been very interesting. As we were exiting the show yesterday, the announcement was made, and I said, 24 hours from now, we're going to hear how incredible and how wonderful he is, the greatest vice presidential pick ever. And there has been, to a degree, some of that. But there has also been a very significant, and I'm talking about in the media, even amongst Democrats, from head scratching to, well, it's not the best pick in the world, to some flat out recognizing, and Van Jones, one of those individuals, that this is definitely a sign of the problem of anti-Semitism within the Democrat Party, and it's something they're going to have to deal with, which I don't know that I agree with. They're not dealing with it now. You would think if they are not picking what was largely seen as the most strategically wise pick because he was a Jew, then there's already a problem here that should have been addressed by the Democrat Party some time ago. I mean, that is, we're way past that moment for the Democrats. And if they are now allowing anti-Semitism to dictate choices as significant as who is going to be the next vice president of the United States if they have their way, we've got real problems in this country, not just the Democrat Party. And it further demonstrates the point I made earlier that the Democrats are, I think this is what a lot of people have a hard time understanding, particularly Democrat voters. And I think there's a level of denialism here. The party is okay with this. The Democrat Party, you've got to remember, this is a party that was perfectly okay with the Klan. Now, most of us weren't alive during that period of time, so we don't remember that. But the Democrat Party is the party of slavery. They were perfectly fine with it. They fought tooth and nail to save it. They're the party that fought tooth and nail for segregation. This is the party of the Klan. And it wasn't a relationship in which Democrats were uncomfortable. Well, how do we deal with it? They were fully fine with it. That was an accepted segment of their voting bloc. So the fact that the Democrat Party today is, through their actions, demonstrating that they are perfectly fine with the anti-Semitic wing of their party should not come as a surprise. They've been through this before. I think it's difficult for many of us to understand because they went through a period of time in which there wasn't something that was so prevalently embraced by the Democrat Party that, of that nastiness and evil. 50, 60 years ago, and further back, when you get into the Klan and slavery and their embracement of that, you got to remember, Woodrow Wilson is president of the United States. Harry S. Truman was a member of the Klan. And the defense that Democrats use of him being a member of the Klan was that, well, he wasn't really racist, but in order as a Democrat, he knew that, running in primaries, he had to be a member in order to get elected. And so he just paid the dues so that he could, get that street cred amongst Democrats. Well, that's even worse. I mean, that is not a good defense for the Democrat Party. That, that if you weren't racist, you had to pretend that you were in order to succeed. So our country has seen in way, way, way past history that when it comes to the two parties, the Democrat Party is the party that houses that sort of hatred and that sort of racism. It's just that most people alive today, that cycle, have been through the period of time where it wasn't something that was so prevalent, and it's just come back. And this time it's in the form of anti-Semitism. And watching the party behave as if it's perfectly normal, it's just another demographic, tells us who they are. And every Democrat that doesn't condemn it, that doesn't reject it, from Crystal Quaid down here in Missouri, they are signaling we are fine with this. This is okay with us. And I think that a lot of Democrats who have grown up Democrats and who have long believed that their party is not that way, you got some real reflection to do here. It doesn't mean you have to become Republican. But are you going to be part of that? Are you going to be part of that? Because many of you right now are, whether you want to admit it or not. Now, there was a lot of discussion yesterday acknowledging this. We're going to take a break, and I want to talk a little bit about this reaction, what it means, and why it was that, there's a very interesting Politico piece about Shapiro and, painting it as if Shapiro was uncomfortable with Kamala. That Shapiro wasn't necessarily skipped over as much as after meeting with her and hearing her vision, that he felt that the two wouldn't necessarily jive. Now, there could be some of that could be for marketing purposes of the Democrat Party, but some of it could be true and legit. I mean, let's be honest. If you're Jewish and you're sitting down with Kamala Harris talking about things like Israel, you could see how maybe it would not click real well. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. There are still quite a few homes out there that suffered storm damage from those storms that rolled through earlier this year. Now, if you are unsure if your roof suffered hail or wind damage, it is time to call Josh and the team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, most insurance companies have a deadline on when you can file a claim, so don't put it off. And whenever you call the Pyramid team, they are going to help you out every step of the way. They will come out, they will do a free roof inspection for you. And that roof inspection, by the way, it's not just them climbing up on the roof and then being like, yep, you need a new roof. They actually take tons of photos and videos for you. They check your vents, your gutters, and they do an attic inspection as well. And then they come up with the best solution for you and your home. Great people. I honestly could not recommend them enough. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out at your home, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Someone had texted in Pyramid Roofing Company talk text line asking who won Sheriff Berry County. This, of course, for the Republican nomination. They said they couldn't find it anywhere. Extremely close. Danny Boyd. 46.61% of the vote. James Morgan behind with 45.93%. So the difference of votes was 43 votes.
Wow.
Boyd getting 3,087. Morgan getting 3,042. Mike McGuire got 321 votes, and Randy Cowball got 173. So you know 4-5% and 2-3% there. So Danny Boyd is the one, and so I don't know if that person's still listening or not. What that was at 7:14. They texted in. Maybe we'll respond via text if you are listening and you want to text us back. Yep, you heard it. Then cool. If not, we will go ahead and send out that response. Another question asking. Oh, let's see. Thank you. Okay, you're welcome. Got that taken care of. Look at us. Serving up answers. Customer service here. Do you think the Jewish voting bloc in America will continue to vote Democrat? Well, some will. And here's how I can best get you to understand it, because I understand. Here's what I do understand. That it's hard to understand. How on earth? How on earth? How on earth can a Jewish person vote for this political party? You could just as easily ask, how could a Christian, or specifically a Catholic, vote for Biden-Harris when this is an administration that has used the FBI to infiltrate the Catholic Church? When they demonize Christians, trying to create this fear of, quote, Christian nationalism, when they go after pro-life people for praying outside abortion clinics and putting them in prison for sometimes decades. But there are tons of Christians that do vote for them, who not only vote for them despite the attack on Christianity and attempts to turn Americans against and fear Christians. There are many people who feel that the Democrat Party is the only party for a Christian to vote for. So I think I think most of us recognize, like, oh yeah, that is true. It helps to some degree, not necessarily understand, but relate to the fact that there are going to be Jewish people that vote for an anti-Semitic ticket. That being said, Trump takes stunning lead over Harris with surprising group in blue state. Former President Trump has moved into the lead among Jewish voters in New York. Trump garnered the support of 50% of likely Jewish voters in New York, according to a Siena Research Institute poll released yesterday, which is a slight lead over Harris, who garnered the selection of 49% of respondents. Now, again, this poll, I should note, obviously, it was taken before Harris took direction from anti-Semites and skipped over the Jewish candidate. And like I said, everyone knows, no one's denying that's why this was done. Will that change things? You would think that it would. But there will still be a segment of that population that continue to vote for Democrat no matter what. While the lead for Trump, they noted, is slim, it marks a dramatic change from the former president's prospects against President Biden, who in June led Trump among likely Jewish voters 52 to 46 in the state. However, the race has changed dramatically since the last poll. Of course, Biden opting out and so forth and so forth. So at this point, though it's statistically tied in New York, Trump is leading amongst Jewish voters. We'll start off with some audio here. This is, first, okay. Here's some discussion. This is ABC, Good Morning America, yesterday, senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, on the fact that Shapiro, which was he was the favorite. Shapiro, Mark Kelly was second. Shapiro, many strategically speaking Democrats felt that Shapiro was the strongest candidate for that ticket. That if there's going to be any candidate that helps Kamala, he's extremely popular, bipartisan in Pennsylvania. He's Jewish, which could help counter the concerns of anti-Semitism. He just made sense. He's younger. He's polished. There were some issues there, but everyone's going to have some issues. And so, the Democrat strategist and the media saw that as the smart pick, and it didn't go that way. So there was a lot of discussion about it yesterday, and some of that was on Good Morning America.
Harris looking for a VP she can trust and crucially can help her win. Shapiro emerging as a favorite, with Pennsylvania a must-win for both campaigns. But his views prompting concern among some on the left, including Arab Americans and union leaders.
Okay, Arab Americans. So in other words, they're acknowledging here. This is the very soft acknowledgement. Anti-Semites. There are concerns that those who want to finish what Hitler started might not necessarily like having a Jew on the ticket, so Kamala decided to go elsewhere. We're going to take a break. More audio coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I would say, for all the talk about how you go through these cycles, there's all of this hype on the VP pick, hype. Then these discussions about, well, it doesn't really matter. I think that if ever there was a choice that can make a difference and not for the positive, this could be an example of it. I do not believe, for a number of different reasons, this is going to be helpful, and it could potentially be harmful to Kamala Harris. It really is, politically speaking, good news for the Trump campaign. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs. It is easy. It is in this economy to try and go the cheap. I get it. Dustin, who, of course, along with Sarah, has the show here Saturday mornings, was telling us just last week that they have seen this trend that they don't like it at all, where people will bring in their vehicle because they bought a part online because it was cheaper, and that part caused further damage in a car. And it isn't necessarily going to always work that way, but sometimes it does. And there's a recognition why that's happening, because people, it's hard times. This Biden-Harris economy is very, very it's hurtful, it's harmful, and people are going to these extreme measures. Point being is sometimes they cost you even more. They can do even more damage. So what do? Financing options are available. You don't have to have the best credit in the world. That's something that they can talk to you about if you find yourself in that position. So I would recommend that even if you think I just can't, I have no choice but to gamble and get some part off the internet and then try to put it in myself or have somebody else I know put it in, at least have a conversation with A1 Custom Car Care about their financing options, and then you can make a fully educated decision. A1 Custom Car Care, KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight clear with a low around 65. For Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And on Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 82.
There's what appears to be a contradiction in much of the media's reaction, not all, but much of the media's reaction to the Tim Walz pick versus what we have been subject to when it comes to Kamala Harris, which, of course, was once they re-rigged the system, overturned the Biden election, and then went ahead prior to the convention, so she could not be challenged, and anoint her to be the nominee. And that is full-blown. She's the greatest thing ever. She was never border czar. She's an incredible speaker. She's wonderful. And so we've been subject to this. So one would think that would follow suit when it comes to Tim Walz. But that hasn't been the case. And we're going to talk about the reason for that here in a minute. But I wanted to read to you just some of the reactions. Several liberal media figures expressing concern when word came out that Vice President Kamala Harris selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate, with some pundits questioning the, quote, weird choice. Harris, the nominee, chose Walz over Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro, who was considered to be the top contender. Washington Post columnist Megan McArdle wrote, quote, my fears about Harris are that she is incredibly bad at public speaking and that she reliably makes bad political decisions. So far, she has done nothing to ally either fear. I'm not saying she can't win, but I wish she gave me more confidence. And incidentally, that's something that doesn't get talked about that much, is Kamala Harris's note. She's bad at campaigning. She's bad at decision-making. She's just not good at things. And people who have observed her, even left-wing columnists from the Washington Post, when it comes down to honest evaluation, they recognize that. She does not speak well. People do not like her. She is not good at things. She's not good at the things that she does. I don't know. She may have some sort of talent we're not aware of, that we don't see, that she could highlight. For whatever reason, we just don't see those things. Professor and podcaster Damon Linker reacting, quote, rather than pick the very popular governor of a neck-and-neck must-win purple state, Harris chose a dime-a-dozen blue state governor who gives feels to progressives. That's about what I have expected from her a month ago. Author, Matt Lewis, declared it wasn't a, quote, bad pick for Kamala, but feels that Walz will do little to appeal to anti-Trump conservatives. Quote, if you are a never-Trump conservative who is hoping to rationalize a vote for the Dem ticket, it just got harder. Former CNN pundit Chris Kaliza wrote, quote, such a weird choice, while MSNBC's Brendan Buck said that the pick feels very 2019. The VP doesn't matter a ton, but I think this reflects very poorly on her decision-making. Liberal actor and comedian Michael Rappaport mocks Shapiro for walking back support for Israel and still getting passed over for Walz. Quote, yo, Josh Shapiro unjewed himself publicly and still didn't get picked. So why this reaction from allies? Why is it that the same people who have been working overtime to spread disinformation about Kamala Harris, about her stances, about her popularity, why honest reflection? Here's what I believe is occurring here. I don't think it has anything whatsoever to do with the pick itself. In fact, I mean, he's extremely left-wing, so this falls into line with what they like. What is their ultimate goal? Their ultimate goal is for Kamala to win. That's very clear. I think that many of them, what we're hearing here is aggravation because they feel this was a very stupid pick, strategically speaking. You know, there are a lot of Trump supporters that have been very aggravated at Donald Trump because he had essentially everything. He had all this sympathy. He had people that for the first time were viewing him as human. And then what a lot of Trump supporters saw him walking into this trap of talking about race, which is what the Democrats want, and it changed the narrative. And there were a lot of Trump supporters very, very aggravated with him. I believe that's what we're seeing on the other side when it comes to the media giving these expressions of aggravation, the head scratching, what is she doing? It's not a objective analysis, interestingly enough. While it may seem it's accurate analysis, but it's not objective. The analysis is coming from people whose goal is to get her to win. They right now have been doing, and I think they fully recognize over the past 2 weeks, all the heavy lifting. Kamala hasn't had to do anything. They're not requiring her to do any sort of press conferences. They're not requiring her to do any sit-down interviews. They're covering for her in that. They're not making a big deal of it. And then here, this is essentially her first decision to be made this first consequential move that she has had to make in over 2 weeks of being the quote nominee, and they feel like she just jacked it up. She made a stupid decision, a no-brainer at that. It was clear that everyone recognized the solid pick was Shapiro. That was clear to the media. That was clear to the Democrats. It was clear to Republicans. Everyone was pretty much on the same page here. He's very popular in his own state, bipartisanship. Pennsylvania, they got to have it. It's not like Minnesota's a toss-up. I mean, they never go Republican. This wasn't something that is a state that they were in fear of losing, that being the Democrats. The Jewish component could be used to push back as essentially a shield against criticism that they were soft on Israel or that they have an anti-Semitism problem. Though I do suspect that there was a recognition that that might rear its ugly head, particularly at the convention when he would get up to speak, what the reaction would be amongst that segment of the crowd. But ultimately, you have a media whose job is to get her elected. And I think there's an annoyance here because they feel as if they're doing all the heavy lifting. And the one thing that she had to do that was an obvious thing up until this point, an absolute no-brainer, and she jacked it up. And so I think that's why you're getting some of this evaluation here, because they're ticked at her over it. Some of the audio reaction from Chuck Todd to Van Jones acknowledging the anti-Semitism within the party. Coming up, I'm Nick Reed. When you are online today, make a stop at wilderrv.com. They have a number of specials that are there. Now, of course, they've got an incredible array of RVs. This is why they are a destination location for RVers from all across the country. For us, it's relatively speaking very close. Clinton, Missouri, up 13, just a little over an hour drive. But you can more easily, perhaps, depending on where you are, visit wilderrv.com. See the news, see the pre-owned, the financing options, family-friendly deals starting at $165 a month. And there are some, a lot of times you see deals and, you get maybe it's a couple percent off. It's $40,000, it's $38,000. But I'm telling you, if you go over there, whether it's the specials or just checking through some of the new stuff that they have, there are some massive deals that you can get. And so this world of RVing, something that perhaps you haven't ever thought about, or maybe you have but thought you couldn't afford it, take the time today. I can all but guarantee at least one person listening is going to have a change in lifestyle based off of today going checking out and be like, that actually would be really, really nice to do, whether it's just get away on your own, you and your dog, or take the family with you. Plenty of options. WilderRV.com, also at KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. Let's start with Chuck Todd yesterday. Now, as I noted, I believe that the reason we are getting some less than, at times, positive reaction by the media to her pick of Walz as the vice presidential candidate is because they're mad at her. This is the first test, if you will. They've been carrying the water for her for over 2 weeks. She hasn't had to do anything at all other than be praised and soak in the propaganda. And she had one thing, and they all made it very obvious for her. You pick Shapiro, and she didn't do it. And I think they're mad about it. I think they're annoyed and they're aggravated because they feel like she's hurt her chances of walking into the White House. That being said, I do fully believe that at some point they're all going to get on, and we're going to be, all of the things they're saying now, at one point they'll pretend that they never said it, and they will shovel out to us a 180-degree turn like they did with Kamala, and we'll hear nothing but wonderful things about him. But for now, yesterday, Chuck Todd.
I'm wondering, I have a yellow flag in my head going, if you squeal loud enough, she hears and responds. There is going to be people that will come away from this experience thinking, the progressive backlash is what got her off of Shapiro or what got her off of Kelly.
If you squeal loud enough, she'll respond. I think about this is the mindset so often of people who lack any real true leadership. And there's a much, much, much bigger difference between leadership and just being in power. And I think about how last week it was revealed that the administration was going to give plea deals to 3 of those involved in planning 9/11. The hijackers, they were requesting death penalty be taken off the table, and the administration said, okay. And as you can imagine, there was a huge uproar, particularly amongst the families who have been waiting for years and years and years to have their day in court. So the response was, okay, well, we'll just reverse it. Now, I'm not saying that elected officials should not be responsive to public sentiment. There are times when that's appropriate. But what you see oftentimes with the left is that it demonstrates that there's no decision that is based in principle. No decision. That if a decision is made, and the only principle is power, if they feel that that decision is something that might be harmful to their power, that's all that matters, and they'll completely toss it out the window. The decision to suddenly decide, oh, okay, well, we won't make a deal with them now, is indicative of that. Because that's not the sort of thing that, frankly, justice in our country should not be swayed by public opinion. That should not come into play. And it was acknowledged that that's the reason that that decision was made, because of public outcry. That is not leadership, particularly when it comes to our justice system. Major Garrett sat down with Neil Gorsuch, asking him questions, about the Supreme Court, and people think this and that, and Gayle King made the comment that, he clearly doesn't seem bothered by public opinion, being against the Supreme Court, nor should he. That is not how our system is supposed to work, but that's the mindset of the left. So for Chuck Todd here to note that when it came to Kamala Harris and what was the clear and obvious choice that would strengthen the ticket and help her in a number of capacities, and his observation that if you squeal loud enough that they'll just switch course, that is this administration. And it's only, there's some context missing there, if the right people squeal loud enough. It has to be squealing that suggests that, we might lose power if we don't switch course. They don't care if if the wrong people squeal, if Trump supporters squeal. They don't care about you if girls squeal or women squeal when it comes to transgenderism, or parents squeal about kids and the government wanting to give them give them pornography in the schools. That stuff doesn't matter to them because their supporters are supportive of that sort of thing, and so they don't worry about the wrong people squealing. But in this context, Chuck Todd's talking about anti-Semites, and anti-Semites are very important to the Democrat Party right now. That notion was touched on by Van Jones on CNN, of course, of the Obama administration.
So here's the challenge you've got in this party. And people don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it. On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building. And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard. But you also have anti-Semitism that's gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party? So that's going to have to get worked out.
How much? 100%. I mean, that's the only rational explanation. Strategically looking at it, if you were to take out the anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party, there is absolutely nothing whatsoever that suggests that Tim Walz is a smart pick over Shapiro for the Democrats. Nothing. When you put anti-Semitism on the table, it all makes sense. And that's what Van Jones is saying there. And that's what others, you've got some of these other Chuck Todd, and they couch it more as, well, pro-Palestinian, but they all know what's going on here. Van Jones is just the one, and some others have said it as well. But it is still, and I'm repetitive in this, I know, I apologize, amazing to me that the Democrat Party is so openly anti-Semitic today. If you had told me that when it comes to this issue that we would see, if you had told me a couple years ago that they would openly be acknowledging that the nominee is making decisions as significant as who the vice president of the United States would be based off of what is it that the anti-Semites want, I would have had a hard time believing you. But this is where they've taken us today. A couple of things at KSGF.com. Last chance to win tickets to see Barry Manilow. Saturday, August 24th. Great Southern Bank Arena this week. Your last chance to get registered to win for those at KSGF.com. Also, local for less Ozark. This week we have half-price $50 tickets to PBR Thunder Days for only $25. Now, this is available now. Usually, I'm correct in that, right? Isn't that, that okay? I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. Generally speaking, when we do these half-price deals, we let you know ahead of time, hey, it's coming up this Friday at 10. The PBR Thunder Days, though, there have been several rounds like of the tickets, and there's some that are left over from when they went live several weeks ago. So if the event, we're much closer to it. It's coming up August 30th. So, I mean, it's still a few weeks away. But those are available now if you go to KSGF.com and the local for less deal. It's the main rotating tile. You'll see it there. Go in there, and you can go ahead and purchase tickets. Now, it's for the Friday, August 30th event, and the sections are in DD row 12 through 15. So it's a very specific location on that day. But if that is something that you want to attend, you can get for only $25 $50 tickets for that now at KSGF.com. Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF. Another hour ahead. I'm Nick Reed.
Loitering off the coast, building strength, expected to make landfall again before day's end, bringing more flooding rains. Savannah, Georgia resident Joe Farley says this is just about as bad as it gets.
I've heard from others that a couple of years ago it was just like this, but I haven't seen anything like this in years, and this is my first time experiencing this high of a level, water level.
After dumping more water on South Carolina, forecasters predict Debbie will march north, spreading more heavy rain and the potential for flooding as the week goes on. The Democrats' presidential ticket barnstorms into Wisconsin today, a day after presidential nominee Kamala Harris introduced her running mate, Minnesota's progressive Governor Tim Walz, at a rally in Philadelphia. Another member of the congressional squad loses a Democratic primary.
Incumbent Missouri Representative Cori Bush has been defeated by St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney Wesley Bell. In June, another squad member, Representative Jamal Bowman, lost to George Latimer, a pro-Israel centrist. Bell's campaign received a big boost from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, whose Super Political Action Committee, United Democracy Project, spent $8.5 million to oust Bush. She was targeted after repeated criticism of Israel's military response to the October 7th Hamas attack. Bush responded by saying that the donors behind AIPAC support former President Donald Trump and other Republicans. I'm Norman Hall.
Disney returned to profitability in the third quarter as its combined streaming business started making money for the first time, and that earlier than expected. However, it was a somewhat disappointing showing for Disney's theme parks. Wall Street, head of the opening bell, Dow futures up 314, NASDAQ futures 253 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Whether you just grin and bear it or bite the bullet when it comes to everyday pain, don't. Try Relief Factor, a drug-free daily supplement that helps your body fight pain naturally. Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain, it helps reduce or even eliminate it. It's 100% drug-free, it's developed by doctors. In 3 weeks or less, you'll know whether it works for you like it works for me. Try Relief Factor for yourself. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF and save on your first order. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF.
What does it take for organizations to triumph? It takes trust. But trust is getting harder and harder to gain, which is why over 2,700 organizations display the ECFA seal. The ECFA seal gives your organization the third-party credibility that people are literally looking for. And in turn, an estimated 14 million givers support ECFA-accredited organizations. Let us help you maintain a trusted reputation as you reach the world for Christ. Visit ecfa.org/triumph to learn more.
North Korea's leader ordering 300,000 young people to
For those that are just tuning in and did not hear the opening of the show with election results, and I know that there are some of you because of the text messages coming in on the Pyramid Roofing Company Talk and Text line, Mike Kehoe ended up with the nomination, 39.41% of the vote. Eigel in second with 32.55%. Jay Ashcroft, 23.24% in third place. And then I'll mention Chris Wright because he was on the show a couple times and did some campaigning around here. Came in fifth place with 1.34% of the vote. And there were, of course, those of you who know, there was like 8 different candidates on there. Andrew Bailey, Attorney General, 63% to Will Scharf's 36.99%. Lieutenant Governor David Wassinger, 31.39%. Lincoln Huff coming in second place, very, very close race with 30.26%. Holly Ryder after that, 21.67%. Denny Hoskins, Secretary of State, with 24.42%. Second place there, Shane Scholler, who of course is Greene County Clerk, at 16.83%. And I think that pretty much covers Arnott easily won with like 80%, the reelection there for sheriff. And on the tax credit amendment question, that did fail. The tax credit or the waiving of property taxes, I believe it was, for folks that had daycare centers, and then the other amendment that ultimately dealt with law enforcement, revenue, Kansas City, that did pass. And I think that pretty much covers most of it. When it comes to the Democrats on the gubernatorial side, Crystal Quaid got over 50%. And so the Democrats there choosing the one candidate that went to court to kick a black man off the ballot. So that's where the Democrat Party is in Missouri, which it's either North or South Carolina. They are trying to do the same thing there with Cornell West. They are fighting the election board there. All of the Democrats voted to try and kick Cornell West off the ballot there, despite having the signatures to be on the ballot. They fear that he may draw votes away from Kamala Harris. And so at least in Missouri and, again, either North or South Carolina, we've seen Democrats attempting to kick black people off the ballot. I don't know that that hasn't happened in other states as well, but that is a distinction that the Democrat Party does have for their gubernatorial candidate here in Missouri. So just making us proud. Hey, but we are the state that delivered up a president who was a member of the Klan, Harry S. Truman. So Josh Shapiro, according to reports, backed out of the Kamala Veep stakes at the last minute. Now, there is a Politico piece that is, well, it's not just indicating, it's claiming that ultimately it wasn't that Kamala passed over Shapiro, but that he pulled out. What does this mean? This could mean a couple of things. One, this could all be marketing in order to push back against what many people recognize as the Harris campaign bending the knee to anti-Semitism, that it became very clear that as a Democrat, you cannot have a Jew on the ticket. And so this was catering to the anti-Semitism within the party. And when it comes to a general election, they don't want it to be that obvious. And so if Shapiro, if there's a story put out there and it says, no, it was his decision. This wasn't Kamala passing Shapiro over. This was Shapiro backing out. And that's why she ended up not choosing the Jewish man, not because of anti-Semitism. That is one possibility. The other possibility is that Shapiro did decide he did not want to be part of this campaign. And there could be a couple of reasons for that. Part of what Politico reports is regarding Shapiro, saying, why not Shapiro? By contrast, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's team felt that his own interview with Harris did not go as well as it could have. There was, quote, not a great feeling coming out of it, according to a person in touch with Shapiro's advisors. A person familiar with the selection process told our colleagues that after their meeting on Sunday, Shapiro called Harris's team and made clear that he was, quote, struggling with the decision to leave his current job as governor in order to seek the vice presidency. Now, one thing that I think is probably clear here is that it wasn't a struggle over whether or not to leave his job, because if that were the case, it would not have gotten to the point that it did. Like in a without weighing the possibility of winning versus losing. So just in a vacuum, if he were somebody that's like, hey, from the beginning, listen, I just got a lot of work to do here in Pennsylvania. I'm not comfortable. It would not have gotten to where he was one of the last two people. It would have not gotten to where he was going through the vetting process. It would not have gotten to the point where she was having these final interviews on Sunday with these 2 or 3 candidates to make this final determination. So I think that's put in there in order to make it appear as if this was more about his commitment to Pennsylvania than it was not being committed to Kamala and an effort to make it into the White House. It's to soften things a bit. So why would Josh Shapiro be uncomfortable with this? One, it could straight up be anti-Semitism. Yes, he clearly recognizes that his party has that problem, but he may have sat down with her in an interview, and clearly this is a subject matter that was going to come up. You're the Jewish guy. And there's anti-Semitism in the party. Okay, how's this going to look? How are we going to navigate this? He may not have liked the answers he got. He may have been walking away from that, as it's described by his people, as not a great feeling, not in the context of him being a politician, but as a Jewish person. That he walked away not having a great feeling as a Jew after sitting down and talking with Kamala Harris about these issues. The other reason that he may have walked away and decided that this wasn't for him and had, not a great feeling, perhaps not so much or maybe not even at all in that context of him being Jewish. But, and I know this may seem obvious to you, but I think that genuinely people who for the first time sit down and have a conversation with Kamala Harris one-on-one find themselves surprised at how unappealing and idiotic she is. It's almost the opposite of Trump. The one thing that consistently you hear from people who meet with Trump behind closed doors is that while he may be very braggadocious in public and he can be off-putting in certain ways, that when he gets behind closed doors, he is very, very, very good with people. That he has this ability to win people over. He's very, very likable. Kamala Harris, though not in a public forum, I mean, she's not likable in that capacity, but I suspect that when some of these people get behind closed doors with her, they're surprised at even how, it's almost like Biden with his cognitive issues. That Democrats were, well, okay, sure, he's getting old and everything, and yeah, it happens, but then when they would get in a meeting with him, when the cameras were away, they were shocked, we would learn after the fact, at how far the decline was. They didn't realize it was as bad as it was because they weren't in these one-on-one scenarios with him until that moment. And I think that there's a good chance Shapiro may have just walked away thinking, my God, this woman is an idiot. Even if she wins, I do not want to be in the White House with this person. Neither of the reasons that would make sense for Shapiro to essentially, according to Politico, withdraw himself from consideration because he was uneasy with the way the conversation went in the one-on-one meeting with her are very positive reflections of Kamala Harris or the Democrat Party. Latest news update.
In the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight clear with a low around 65. For Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And on Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 82.
Streaming live, KSGF.com, YouTube also. Hello to those of you in that world. That's sponsored by Springfield Wraps, who designed the KSGF studio. All right, let's do a little more audio, shall we? So, as we mentioned in the last hour, there was some honest observations regarding the pick of Walz by the media. It wasn't for honest reasons. I don't believe that they were evaluating the problem with anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party because they really have concerns about it. But I think that in their minds, they've been doing all the heavy lifting for Kamala. They are doing all the marketing for her. They are not requiring her or even bringing to light the fact that she has not held a single press conference or a sit-down interview since she was announced as the new chosen nominee. And here she had one job to do. That was a real easy job to do. And that was pick Shapiro, and she didn't do it. And so I think they're very annoyed by this fact because they felt as if that was the obvious, easiest, strongest pick for her. And instead she went for somebody that is certainly not going to – I mean, he's extreme left wing. We're going to go through some of that coming up here. I mean, he just sat and he let rioters burn his city cities within his state to the ground, even expressing sympathy for them. He's an extreme nut job. He's for sex change operations for kids. He had tampon machines put in boys' bathrooms and like fourth graders. He's a weirdo, frankly. Almost, I would say, a pervert, because he supports pornography being provided in public elementary schools, and it's just not strategically a very smart pick. But there were some in the media, and you can hear it, that they're already trying to craft him as, compared to J.D. Vance. This guy's normal, and he's a Midwesterner. I mean, he really is. He's a normal kind of guy, and that was discussed on CNN.
One of his friends told me this morning that his superpower is how normal.
Is he? I mean, I don't know. I don't know this guy. I mean, is it normal to let your biggest city in your state burn while you're the governor for 4 days, destroying thousands of businesses, hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage while you do nothing? Does that sound normal? Is it normal for your wife to say she opened the window so she could let the smell of tire fires waft in so they could take in the smells of this radical chaos and anarchy on the streets of Minneapolis? I don't view any of that as normal.
Yeah, that's something his wife said in an interview, that she opened the windows because she felt it was such a moment as the city burned, that way she could smell the burning rubber of tires as the crazed mobs burned down citizens' livelihoods. And apparently his daughter was also on social media during that period of time. There are reports coming out that somebody who's said to have been his daughter was tipping off rioters as to where National Guard was going to be, which, of course, could put their lives in danger. So the whole family seems like a grouping of total extreme radical nut jobs. Jiminy Christmas. There's a piece called, or in the Federalist, Tim Walz, Folksy Socialist, asking, have you heard about his folksiness? Surely you've noticed the, quote, folksy demeanor. These are all terms that the media has begun crafting, and Democrats. These are part of their talking points. Folksy demeanor and folksy manner and folksy appeal and folksy mannerisms of this folksy former soldier. If you somehow missed it, the folksy governor of Minnesota exudes a folksy informal vibe and folksy relatability. But don't forget his folksy rebukes and folksy plain-spoken and sharp-tongued approach either. These are all quotes from people describing him. See, J.D. Vance, who's just actually a normal, everyday guy in Ohio, he's weird. But Tim Walz is folksy. See, he's folksy. This is like Claire McCaskill when she was driving an RV around Missouri to get reelected. Look, I'm one of you guys. Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick is a dedicated cultural and economic leftist who happens to inhabit the body of an average middle-aged bowling team drinking buddy. And because he doesn't live in D.C. or New York City, the political media has settled on a non-threatening description, because who doesn't like folksy? Virtually every major media piece on Walz is identical in its glowing tone and content, stressing his down-home, everyman appeal, while de-emphasizing his insane record. Then again, as Walz says, quote, one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Now, I had mentioned that quote to you whenever we were talking about the white dudes for Harris and how there was this extreme nutjob governor who was, extolling the virtues of socialism, talking about how it's just neighborliness. That's this guy. When Trump announced J.D. Vance as his V pick, the stories painted a picture of a weirdo who was radicalized into an ideological ally and zealous follower of the former president. Walz, on the other hand, had merely, quote, evolved into his progressive positions, as one does. The word folksy typically has two definitions. One denotes having the characteristics of, quote, traditional, cultural, and customs, or culture and customs, especially in a contrived or artificial way. The other, to act in informal and unpretentious manner. It's certainly fair to say that Walz is more relaxed and unpretentious authoritarian than his running mate. In this case, though, folksiness has a third euphemistic meaning. Quote, not the Jewish guy. Has anyone offered a single convincing reason, other than that obvious one, for why Harris picked Walz for national ticket over Josh Shapiro, the popular governor of a must-win state with more working-class voters than Minnesota? It's highly unlikely that anyone wins 2024 without Pennsylvania. Democrats are gambling that the Jewish vote is secure enough to withstand the rampant anti-Semitism that's taken a hold of the progressive left. It's not a terrible bet, sadly. In Walz, Harris believes she can placate the activist base and growing pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party, while media covers her running mate as a folksy moderate. It's no accident that squad members like AOC and Ilhan Omar were first out of the gate celebrating the pick. Bernie loves it. Hamas apologists like the Washington Post's Catherine Ataya were tweeting like giddy teenagers, "Team Walz, it's our time," all caps, exclamation points. What about moderates and independents? It seems counterintuitive for Kamala, who has accumulated a grand total of 0 primary votes, to tap one of the most brazenly left-wing governors in the country as she attempts to walk back a raft of unpopular positions that were staked out only a few years ago. Like Harris, the folksy Minnesota governor has proposed socializing health insurance, eliminating fossil fuels. Like Harris, Walz wants to effectively decriminalize illegal immigration by signing laws to force taxpayers to pay for their health care and tuition for the illegals, allowing them to have driver's license, which, of course, you know, is used by many states in order to vote. Like Harris, Walz has taken a maximalist position on abortion, signing a bill codifying the procedure as a fundamental right into the 9th month, on demand, with no questions asked. He also signed a bill that lets children with gender dysphoria be mutilated by doctors. Now, the abortion point is important here because every time it is referenced, be it Trump or anyone, that Democrats support abortion up until birth, they claim that that's not true. Well, it's going to be more difficult for them to argue that's not true when Walz signed into law the ability to do that without any. You could walk in labor with no reason whatsoever and get an abortion. That's up until birth. This may be a wake-up call for some Democrats who have genuinely believed the disinformation that Democrats don't support abortion up until birth when they recognize that the vice presidential pick for this ticket is someone who signed into law the right to do that. Aside from all of that, Minnesota has seen a string of scandals and fiscal mismanagement under Walz. Walz, who set up a snitch line to report COVID rule violators, watched as minority neighborhoods in Minnesota were being burned during the BLM riots. When asked to call in the National Guard, he responded, quote, "I will not patronize you as a white man without living your lived experience." Yes, he speaks just like the average American. It's very folksy talk, isn't it? Perhaps none of that will matter because vice presidents rarely matter. Some writers have speculated that Kamala believes Shapiro, a more moderate political figure, would outshine her. Walz, it is true, has never made anyone look bad, but it's also clear that the left is hoping voters will ignore the real Tim Walz and fall for the contrived, harmless, folksy fella of their imagination. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Weather in a moment. Latest traffic now. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight, clear with a low around 65. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And on Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 82.
There was another successful fundraiser for Kamala, over $500,000 raised, and once again, rich celebrities, mostly white. Ben Stiller, Nick Offerman, Kathy Griffin, John Hamm. You had Eric Swalwell. He's the congressman that got duped into having a relationship with a Chinese spy. So brilliant person to have on your side. Again, I mean, listen. The difference is stark between the two political parties. And you see it in the fundraisers. You see it in the events. That in order to get people to even show up at an event, Democrats have to have some celebrity there. In order to get people to donate money, they have to have celebrities there. They are paying people who are TikTok influencers to pretend as if they are supporters of Harris. A number of these TikTokers have come out showing the offerings that they've had. They're paying celebrities $20,000 to go to the Democratic National Convention. 20 grand. That you cannot get a more Hunger Games stark difference between the two parties. The party of opulence and celebrity, of the uber wealthy and rich, and then the political party that is working to once again get an economy back that doesn't cause middle-class Americans to suffer. I heard this morning the guys on Red Eye Radio playing an ad that I think is from the Trump campaign. And it's Ronald Reagan, the "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" And many of us are familiar with that question. But, you know, Reagan goes on saying, you know, are you paying more at the grocery store than you were 4 years ago? Are you doing this? And all of these things were very relatable to today. And you know, everyone, this is what, you know, we all sit around, well, Trump should do this, Trump should do that. Still, the biggest issues right now are the border and the economy. And you're running against the person who has been responsible for the border. And when it comes to the economy, these are people who have said that the economy is working. So this is what people need to understand. It will not get better if Kamala Harris is elected president because she believes things are good now for you. Why would she change if she believes that what is happening is working? It is a fascinating yet disappointing thing in humanity when you see people that will, for the reasons that they will support an individual that's going to have a clear impact on their lives and the lives of others and people that they claim that they love. No reasonable person, and the polls still show this, like, latest poll, 64% say the Biden-Harris economy is worse and that Trump's economy will be better because it was better once before. That you will have people that they will choose that. Now, I know that's crazy to most of you because that's not why you choose leadership. You make decisions, most of you listening, based on what is going to be the more positive outcome. Just whatever it is in life. That's why, when you're trying to decide who it is to hire to do this job or you're going to, do this. And so you'll ask people, hey, here's what I'm looking. Does anybody have any advice? I'm looking for a good this, a good that. And what is it all based off of? You want to know what experiences people had, who had the greater outcome, and that's the route that you go. So that's how we operate. And I know it's confusing and frustrating for us to know that there are millions and millions and millions of people that is irrelevant to them. They do not care. They do not care if the economy continues to be this bad. They don't care if crime continues to skyrocket. They don't care if the border stays wide open. If it means keeping their side, their team in power, so be it. If it means punishing their political opposition, so be it. There was a time in this country where both political parties operated in a fashion that indicated that what they wanted to do was make things better for people. I think even up through the Clinton years, when things started to go a little haywire, Clinton readjusted, went a little less to the left, started working with Republicans, the contract with America, this stuff. There was a government shutdown, and Clinton actually compromised on a lot of things in order to bring the party back to the middle because they recognized that a lot of the things that were occurring, the people didn't like. So they're like, okay, well, we've got to start producing better results. The Democrat Party does not do that anymore. They have no interest in that. They tell you that the failures are a success. Their pitch is save democracy. Save democracy. Save democracy. And it is a sleight of hand that people who are paying attention recognize and understand. And I think it's very telling that the route the Democrats are going at this point is to use social media influencers and celebrities. Social media, to use a venue that targets people that are some of the most uninformed individuals when it comes to the issues, who you ask these people man on the street questions, they are clueless as to what's going on. Clueless. The fact that is their target, those are the people. The reason that Republicans oftentimes get tagged with the stereotype of not campaigning very well is because they get stuck on facts and figures. They get stuck on reality. And sometimes that is not as fun. It's much easier to have a celebrity put on a performance and then talk about saving democracy. That's easy. And it's sad, and that's one of the reasons why, as increasingly the population becomes ignorant and uneducated as to what's going on in this world, that's who the Democrats target. That's who they try to swoop up. It says a lot about them. And unfortunately, the fact that it's successful says a lot about us as a country. So here we go again, a bunch of rich left-wing celebrities who, by the way, don't worry about what bread costs. If you notice the people who are most vocally supportive of then Biden, now Kamala Harris, these rich celebrities, it doesn't matter to them what gas costs. It doesn't matter to them what milk costs. It doesn't matter to them what their insurance premiums are. It doesn't matter to them what rent is. That's irrelevant to them. They get to vote based solely off hate, because they don't have to worry about suffering the impacts like you do. And to me, it's the ultimate selfishness that you have extremely wealthy people who don't get negatively impacted like the rest of the country does with these policies telling you that you need to support more of that when you are the one who suffers. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. All right, so the good news, the positive news for America is that the truth is on our side. The truth is on our side when it comes to the economy, what works, what doesn't work, whether we're talking about Middle Eastern politics, our border, crime, all of these things, reality. And as increasingly, this is why Trump, even prior to Biden winning, Biden having to drop out because of the debate. Even that, the issue of his cognitive issues, that truth was on the side of the Trump campaign. It just took that debate for the truth to be exposed. So when the truth is on your side, that's very helpful. Now, the media and ignorance is on the side of the Harris campaign. You have the media that is trying to erase her record, her reality. You have social media that, last time interfered in the election. You have, number of divisions trying to interfere in the election when it comes to cases against Trump. And you have ignorance, people that have no clue what's going on, could not tell you a single thing, like, for example, an accomplishment of Kamala Harris, which incidentally, where's this story here? There was a story about, I think it was somebody in the Washington Post set out in order to, Washington Post political reporter noted Friday that it's tough to unravel Kamala Harris's distinct accomplishments while serving as vice president. pointing to President Joe Biden's assertion that the two work as a team. So what occurred here is you had the Washington Post, and they set out in order to try and diminish the effectiveness of that messaging, that Kamala Harris hasn't ever really actually accomplished anything. And they found out that you can't really prove that to be not true because she hasn't. Now, they tried to couch it as, well, it's because she works so closely with Biden, it becomes difficult to see whose successes are who. All right, we all know. You can't point to a success of hers. So the truth is on the side of the Trump campaign, while ignorance and media propaganda is on the side of the Harris campaign. And I tell you, even if you lose, I'd rather be on the side of truth. I know not everyone feels that way, but I mean, ultimately, when it comes down to it, and I'm not saying that means this political side always speaks the truth and says the truth, but I'm talking about the ultimate underlying issues. The truth is on our side. And the fact that they have to lie, that they have to rewrite history, that they have to carry the water for and cover for Kamala Harris and essentially turn her into like this created caricature of what they want the American people to believe that she is, that they have to do that. They know that the truth isn't on their side. Because when the truth is on your side, you shout the truth. You don't tell people who understand the truth, no, that's not the truth. You don't understand it. No, the border's secure. No, the economy's wonderful. Oh, inflation is transitory. You don't hide the truth. You shout it from the rooftops. And in the big picture, the scheme of things, that it's good news for those people who seek the truth. It doesn't mean that you always win, and we'll see. I mean, we've got a lot of time here for Kamala to screw things up. And let's not forget, this is one of the reasons that Democrats didn't like her, because she always screws things up. She is a bad campaigner. She's a bad boss. People don't like her. And I still can't help but believe the reason, according, Politico saying that Shapiro walked away from his meeting with her on Sunday feeling uneasy. I think because he, in that one-on-one conversation, realized this woman is an unlikable idiot. And there is no way I want to be attached to her. Speaking of, there's a book that came out back in 2022. And it was written by two of the guys over at Politico, Alex Byrne and Jonathan Martin. And Breitbart has a piece that is bringing back some of the aspects of the book that covered Biden's thoughts on Kamala Harris. Now, again, remember, this was back when people even on the left recognized that Kamala Harris was very weak, okay? You're going to be like, why would they print this stuff? Why would Politico print this stuff? This was pre-Biden debate. This was 2 weeks ago when we were all told how great Kamala Harris is. Biden's reported comments, according to the two Politico authors, contradicts his statement that Harris is a viable candidate to defeat former President Donald Trump and is, quote, ready for the job of president. It also lends credence to speculation that Biden endorsed Harris to enact revenge on party bosses who threatened to oust him from the race with the 25th Amendment. Some of the descriptions that Biden has used in order to describe Kamala Harris: strange, messy, uneven, fallen short, and fiasco. This according to multiple excerpts from Burns and Martin's book. Biden also privately and repeatedly trashed Harris as inauthentic. The authors recounted, quote, during the primary, Biden privately and repeatedly shared visions of a common observation about Harris: she doesn't seem to know who she even wants to be. Quote, Harris was neither a candidate who most greatly impressed Biden's vice presidential search committee, nor the person his advisors saw as the most immediately prepared for the presidency. In focus groups, the Politico heads wrote, they found voters asking why Biden had not considered male options if the ultimate goal was to choose the best person for the job. Biden, of course, would select Harris anyway, to the reported consternation of Jill Biden, even though Harris essentially called Biden a racist and segregationist. So, again, this is the pre-Harris era versus the post-Harris as presidential candidate era, when the media was writing things about her that were true and that were unflattering. And that is, you could not find a Democrat who said anything positive about her personality, about her leadership skills, about the way that she manages people, be it her own campaign or her office as vice president. The reason I mention this is not just to say, well, this was them then versus this is them now, but it is to demonstrate that there is a lot of time, relatively speaking, between now and the election for the real Kamala that all these people know to be exposed. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. How did Kehoe win? Rhino, you said. Well, again, we do not have runoffs in Missouri, which means that you had a majority, you had like 60% of people vote against Kehoe. That is our system. I don't like our system. We should have a runoff. Now, that doesn't mean that he wouldn't have won. I suspect that he would not have, because if you take the votes for Ashcroft and Eigel and put them together, then you have a much different situation, a much different outcome. And so that combined with the fact that, honestly, most people do not really pay attention other than they see campaign ads, and those can be very, very effective. And listen, there obviously some people that do like Kehoe, that do know who he is, and they like the tax-raising stuff and everything, and so you're going to have that as well. So ultimately, that's how. But, the term won, of course, can be interpreted a number of different ways, and he did not win a majority. But you don't have to in our system, which I've noted is always very, very good for the establishment candidates. All right, don't forget, last chance to this week win tickets to see Barry Manilow in concert. That's at ksgf.com. I will chat with you tomorrow, my friends, and Glenn Beck.